Hello, one and all. Welcome to Kitz Corner here. So, we've seen all the smears, attacks, stabs, misinformation, and manipulation when it comes to COVID with all the articles that were produced, how journalists and the media was bought up by, big pharmaceuticals, how all the stories were brought to you by Pfizer, which is why they manipulated and pandered towards pharmaceuticals, not providing real science, not providing any real context, looking towards people like Fauci, but then ignoring people like Dr. Robert Malone, who was the head scientist that invented the technology to bring us the vaccines. They completely silenced him out and shoved him under the bus. Same with the people that were charged of distribution. Same with Dr. Peter McCullough, who was the world-renowned cardiologist who was making excellent points there. And that's why we got, articles that ivermectin, which is one of the most efficient drugs, it's the number one of the top leading drugs of the World Health Organization, was smeared as horse paste because of big pharmaceuticals buying out the media and controlling, manipulating the culture and manipulating the context and the manufacturing consent on COVID. And it's still happening. It's still happening. Even as we're trying to end this pandemic, they're trying to ramp us up for the triple demic that's happening. The COVID slash RSV slash regular flu season. They're trying to make this as the worst thing ever. It's a triple demic. Hospitals are so overwhelmed that we might have to return to mask mandates and 6 feet apart. That's what they're saying after Christmas, because apparently that's going to be a big super spreader according to them. And they still have to do it because pharmaceuticals are, losing their billions of dollars, $84 billion in the last quarter. And that's slowly dropping, and they're crying about it. I mean, you saw the World Economic Forum, the CEO of Moderna was crying that 30,000 vaccines were going unused because people are waking up to the factor that maybe we should have listened to the science, maybe we should have debated on the use of the vaccines and actually looked and understand the virus itself and the effectiveness of the vaccine. But they're still trying to write ridiculous articles here, and I have to show you this because this is top-notch manipulation brought to you by Big Pharma. So the good scientists and medical advisors at Fortune would like to remind people that people who skip their COVID vaccine are at a higher risk of traffic accidents, according to a new study. And that's brought to you again by the lovely scientists and medical community at Fortune magazine. Just like the medical advisors at YouTube would like to remind people that the vaccines are effective and they stop transmission. And I'm just bringing you all this information. I'm just reporting what they're saying about this. But ultimately, I'm bringing you all the information so you're aware of it and you can make your own decision from there. But this is what Fortune had to say about this. And this is just interesting. Let's say that it's interesting. So what they're saying here is if you pass on getting the COVID vaccine, you might be a lot more likely to get into a car crash. Or at least those are the findings of a new study published this month in the American Journal of Medicine. During the summer of 2021, Canadian researchers examined the encrypted government-held records of more than 11 million adults, 16% of whom haven't received the COVID vaccine. They found that the unvaccinated people were 72% more likely to be involved in a severe traffic accident in which at least one person was transported to the hospital than those who were vaccinated. That's similar to the increased risks of car crashes for people with sleep apnea, though only about half that of people who abuse alcohol, researchers found. So my question to this is, what about all the traffic accidents before we even knew about COVID? Before this pandemic, before the vaccines, before any of this happened, we had a lot of car crashes. Okay, that's a pretty common thing that we see around. There's usually accidents all over the place. What exactly does that entail? But all of a sudden now, because people are skipping out on the vaccine, that's somehow related to traffic reports? I'm not, jumping to conclusions or anything. I'm just trying to figure this out for myself. I'm just trying to question this for myself, which I know it's such a dangerous thing to do your own research and have questions and critiques. I thought that's how you grew as a person. I was taught that as a young age that if you want to learn and understand things, you question things. But this day and age, nothing makes sense anymore. Um, the excess risk of a car crash posted by unvaccinated drivers exceeds the safety gains from more modern automobile engineers' advances, and also imposes risks on their other road users, the other roads. Of course, skipping a COVID vaccine does not mean that someone will get into a car crash. So, literally, what is that? Paragraph number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 paragraphs in, they completely expose themselves. Because at the beginning, it sounded like if you don't get vaccinated, you're going to get into a car crash. That's how they were trying to placate. That was how they were trying to fearmonger people into this. But now into the 5th paragraph, well, it doesn't mean you're actually going to get into a car crash. We're just hyping this up because we're trying to get the seal of approval by pharmaceutical industry, and that's who owns the media today. And we want Bill Gates to fund us, so we're just going to do as much as we can on this. Instead, the author theorizes that people who resist public health recommendations might also neglect basic road safety guidelines. So this has nothing to do with health or science or anything to do with the vaccine. This has to do with the fact that they're worried because people are questioning the authority of mandates. They're going to question the authority on everything. This is how they pander. This is how they fearmonger. This is the BS arguments that they always use. I've heard this before. I've heard this multiple times from, the so-called experts. Some brilliant scientists or researchers even said this, like, oh, well, if people are going to ignore, public health mandates are authoritarian and draconian and don't actually follow the science and don't actually follow the entails of the actual virus, that's going to lead to people just questioning basic traffic laws, and basic civility is going to go down the drain. Like how ridiculous that is. How ridiculous sounding that is. That somehow the trucker protests are not just about the mandates, they're somehow about traffic laws and all government authoritarian, and like just fear mongering that to that point because they have no real argument on this. So they're trying to fear monger that people are going to become more opposed to traffic laws. Like how stupid that sounds. Why would they ignore the rules of the road? That's what they're asking. Distrust of the government, a belief in freedom, misconceptions of daily risk, faith in natural protection, and faith in natural protection. You mean bodily autonomy? My body, my choice? Sorry, I love when they try to sham words like this, like just sham it right into the article and do this kind of stuff. Apathy towards regulation, poverty, misinformation, a lack of resources, and personal beliefs are potential reasons proposed by the authors. Again, they don't even list the authors. They don't list the scientists. They don't list the sources. They just say this is a claim that they're making. The findings are significant enough that primary care doctors should consider counseling unvaccinated patients on traffic safety. And insurance companies might base charges to insurance policies on vaccinated data, the authors suggest. So, private insurers, car insurance companies, are going to harvest your medical data and decide whether to charge you more because of some bogus study that doesn't even make sense, because of some theory, because of something they're suggesting onto the general public. Well, if they're not following COVID guidelines, I guess they're not going to follow any guidelines. Maybe they're going to brush their teeth with barbecue sauce. Maybe they're going to, fill their gums with paste. Maybe they're going to do ridiculous stuff. Maybe they're going to play with lawn darts again. Like, people are just mad. They don't know. They're too stupid to figure out things for themselves. And if we try to let them figure things out for themselves, we're going to smear them even more. This is just so friggin' stupid. Um, but I guess I'm not allowed to say that. I'm just reporting on what they're saying, though. First responders may also consider taking precautions to protect themselves from COVID, responding to traffic crashes. The authors wrote, as it is more likely that driver is unvaccinated than vaccinated. What point are they trying to make of that? So people that drive cars are unvaccinated by default? Is that what you're claiming? The findings suggest that unvaccinated adults need to be careful indoors with other people and outside with surrounding traffic. Yeah, they're dangerous individuals. They're so dangerous. This isn't the first time the researchers that have examined the link between behavior and vaccinated status among young adults, a 2021 study published in the Journal of Bioeconomics found a correlation between self-reported risky driving and having skipping their flu vaccine. And examined the survey responses of more than 100,000 Canadians. Holy crap. Holy crap. This is just ridiculous. This is just ridiculous. And I'm just waiting to get waiting to look for the seal of approval like they do with the Oprah Book Club. Just the seal right there, brought to you by Pfizer. Because this study does not, to me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And my question of it is, if they're saying that missing out on a COVID vaccine is causing more traffic accidents, what happened to all the traffic accidents before we even knew about COVID, before this even existed, before we had this pandemic situation, before the vaccines came out? But now they're saying that there's a correlation between that and flu shots. Which again, I don't understand. I don't understand. There's no scientific analysis to this. There's no data to prove any of this. They're not listing any doctors or anywhere to look at this further. This is just Fortune magazine picking something out of the air and claiming it as fact. So they're spreading misinformation on this. That's just my response to it. I'm just reporting on this. I can't make any assumptions or judgment on it. I have to remind people that the good people at YouTube, the medical advisors, the scientific community at YouTube Incorporated and Google would like to remind you that the vaccines are safe and effective, and continue to do so. It will stop transmission, and we'll just go from there. You make your choice. We'll figure out the rest.